This is Monroe University.
Hello, I'm Diego, one of your Monroe virtual trainers. Today, we're going to talk about one of the steps in the digital shop inspection process, the brake inspection. Let's get started. We're now going to get into some of the specifics of the inspections. We'll begin with the brake inspection and talking about the process of completing it. We are still inside the courtesy inspection for brakes. Just like in the under-hood inspection, we can quickly toggle to the All Data Repair module by clicking on the repair icon at the top right of the inspection. To retrieve brake specifications, we can click on the specification in the left column, or type the component we want specifications for in the search bar on the upper right of the screen. Suggestion: look up minimum machine to and/or discard specifications and record on the drum or rotor with a Sharpie. The All Data tablet defaults to four-wheel disc brakes. It will answer the drum brakes question with a default of no. If the vehicle is a disc/drum or drum setup, use the slider on drum brakes to answer yes. You will then be prompted to answer is this from the brake system and/or the rear brake system. As we have moved through the process, we have found several items that require more detail to support a service recommendation to the brake inspection, like brake fluid, batteries, and tires, to name a few. When you tap the arrow on each wheel position, you will walk through a set of screens. The first screen will ask you for: what is the inner pad thickness? The brake gauges we use measure in millimeters, mm, and is the default for pad measurements. Select the measurement from the list. The second screen will ask you for the outer brake pad measurement. After measuring again, record the measurement from the list. This will take you to the rotor measurement screen. Enter your measurement and then touch if you have measured in millimeters or inches. Measuring a minimum of 3 places on the rotor and recording those measurements on the rotor helps assure the guest that a pulsation will not be occurring as a result of lack of parallelism. Record the lowest measurement in the tablet. Variances can be recorded in the Notes section. Now let's watch a brief video on measuring rotors with Senior Manager of Technical Training, David Lano.
I want to measure the rotors. And when I measure the rotors, I'm not going to just measure the rotors in one place. I'm going to measure these rotors in 6 different positions. And what I'm looking for is this rotor the same thickness here as it is here. Because Pat, if this side's thinner and this side's thicker, as soon as this guest puts their foot on the brake, every time that thick part comes up, that brake pedal is going to come up with it, and it's going to cause a brake pedal pulsation that my guest just is not going to be happy with. So I am going to go ahead and take the measurements, and when I do that, I'm going to measure it again in 6 different places. So I've got 1, and I've got 2, and my memory's not that good, Pat, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and write that measurement right here on the rotor right now so I know exactly what it is. And I'm going to continue my measuring.
Why is that measurement important, David?
Again, Pat, the one thing that is very, very important to me is that this rotor, as it's going down the road, I need this guest to have a rotor that has the same thickness all the way around. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare these measurements that I've made on this rotor to the manufacturer's specification, because there's going to be a point where the manufacturer is going to say this vehicle is no longer, this rotor is no longer serviceable based on a minimum thickness. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that even the smallest of these measurements is above that minimum thickness. And just to be safe, I'm going to write that minimum thickness right here on the rotor as soon as I've looked it up.
To clarify what you heard from David in the video about the number of measurements, for ConfiDrive purposes, we are going to decrease the number of measurements to 3 and not 6. Again, remember these measurements are documented at the end of the brake inspection process. This will take you to the specifications screen. Look up the discard specifications in All Data. Next, look up the rotor specifications and record the minimum machine to or discard specification. If no minimum machine to is specified, annotate as NS, not specified. This particular vehicle has a maximum thickness variation of only 3/10,000 of an inch. Enter the specification here. You can now make a recommendation by selecting the correct map code. An explanation of your recommendation can be placed in the Notes function. Now you can repeat the process on all 4 axles. Check all of the hardware including caliper slides, self-adjusters, wheel cylinders, hoses and lines for damages or leaks. If any issues with hardware, hoses, calipers, wheel cylinders, or bearing/seal issues are found, place them in the Notes section to identify wheel position. Congratulations! We've just completed the brakes inspection, which is part of the courtesy inspection in the ConfiDrive process. Stay tuned for more how-tos in the inspection process.
One vision. One team. One Monroe.